Hello, everyone. This is Cell's office hour for May 2nd, 2024. We don't have any items in the agenda. I only added one so far. So just to not emphasize, but verbalize a bit more the action items we came out from Fuzz Boot. So we had the Cells Fuzz Boot last week, where some of us met around the Cells project and how we're going to work on it and like took some decisions. I think the biggest decisions we made is that Cell 1.0 is going to be for internal customers only. So this goes more into us as a company that we dog food first before we release to customers. So we'll move some top level groups that we need to identify, like finance or security team, for example, where they can use Cell 1.0 because it's all private organizations, and we'll go from there. Another big change is for disaster recovery. We're going to end up using GitLab Geo, which is the first time we're going to use GitLab Geo for production fully for disaster recovery. That's something that GitLab Dedicated is already doing. So we're going to do it for GitLab.com. There were some naming changes happening as well. So previously we were calling it Cell Mover to move one organization from one cell to another. We renamed that to Org Mover, which is a lot more clear that we're actually moving organizations, not cells. And the global service was renamed to Topology Service. So you can look at all the action items there. People are still working on adding MRs or creating issues around that, but yeah. Does anyone want to add anything around this, around the agenda?
I have one. I would like to copy paste it. Sorry for not moving, but okay. So I wanted to
You
ask.
can focus on the formatting later.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I wanted to ask about the situation where we have namespace IDs in a table, which is not null for GitLab.com because it's bound to namespace, but can be null for self-managed, where because self-managed is more like instance and it's more in instance level, and then we don't care about namespace ID. For example, uh, buying a subscription, which is like for a top level namespace in GitLab.com, but for self-managed, it's an instance label, so we don't have it. So I just had some review in some MRs, and we also have an issue to like how to treat that in terms of sales. So like because if namespace ID is used as a starting key for sales, how do we treat that for self-managed, or like uh, is it required for self-managed too? The sales compliance, or is it not? And yeah, I mean, there was just an idea from Dylan, I think, to use organization ID. So if we use that, should we need to backfill all the existing data, and also how the organization ID will play in terms of self-managed, and like, do you also need to maybe, I don't put some default organization ID some kind of over there? Just my thought, like I had in my mind last week and wanted to share. Yeah.
I think we last time I heard, at least, and this is my information, is that for self-managed, we're gonna have one organization per self-managed instance, right? Now how that works in the sense, I saw a merge request where, so when you provision a new GitLab instance, it will create a new default organization for that instance.
Okay.
And as far as I know, when I talked to Joshua, the product manager, he said that we will probably not allow a self-managed instance to create multiple organization, right? A self-managed instance will only create one organization, and that's it. At least that's the best practice we're gonna suggest to folks. But maybe we can connect, connect to Christina or Alex, if you're not already talking to them, because those are the folks who are working on the organization side, and they did have some discussions around this in the fast boot last week. So things might have changed that I'm not aware of. So, as far as I know, one organization per self-managed instance. So yeah.
Good, thank you. And so my another follow-up would be like, then I think the ideal scenario would be like for this kind of table, where like namespace ID is a starting key, we need to backfill, probably organize an ID and use that as a starting key. And is that required for Sales 1.0 already, or is it something
So we need
later?
to backfill organization ID. Is that for GitLab.com or
Mm.
for self-manage when you say backfill?
So my question would be both like what would be the extent of work we would need that? Like, do we need to backfill it for like GitLab GitLab.com, or also for the self-managed based on what's our goal in Sales 1.0?
I would say for .com we would have to backfill it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much work or like if we've
Okay.
already
Yeah.
been backfilling that stuff, because like we've been using
Mm.
Tong maybe can correct me, or maybe Omar, that we have been using organization ID for some sharding keys, right? Like have we been backfilling those values in production right now, or we don't know?
I think the issue, it's easy to backfill them in GitLab.com. There's only one organization. So it's pretty easy to backfill. I think the issue is that we kind of have this legacy problem right now, where we kind of don't want too many records with organization ID. But for this table, it's fine because this table is quite a small table. Or like the issue I'm talking about is that we need to move organizations, top level groups out of the default organization into its own organization in the future. So split up the big legacy cell. And when that happens, we don't want to have to update a whole bunch of rows, like millions of rows. For example, the issues table is probably we need to consider that carefully, whether we have organization ID 1 right now, because when we move them out of the default organization, then we have to update the column, which is potentially not something that we want. Yeah. So but the Steve is correct. Like ideally we backfill the sharding key, and if possible make it non-nullable. But in this case we can't, right? Because on self-manage it's null. So yeah. So we have two options. We can use namespace ID.
GDK update done.
Sorry about that. We can use namespace ID as the sharding key and assume that it's all filled in. Am I right? It's all filled in on GitLab.com?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And then you can add an exception in the spec, that checks for like the thing. So you can add a temporary exception there, or we can use organization ID as a sharding key instead, and backfill it and then make it non-nullable as well. Both ways seems to work for me. But that makes sense.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, also would be like, because the first option I have done that for few tables already, like that's related to fulfillment, let's say. And if we can live with like not having not null constraint, then I think I think the scope will be a bit less for Sales 1.0 than for us. Yeah, just for the record.
I think eventually we want to have, because if we don't have the not nullable constraint, then it's very easy to have now. I mean, it's possible then to have now values appear, right, when we don't expect it. Then yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. But I mean that clears up my questions, and also in a sense, like as we move forward for like starting work on Sales 1.0, what can we I mean, like, what can we prioritize and how can we start chipping off the work? Thank you.
So any other items we want to add?
I have a question kind of related to the sharding key we were talking. So I understand why we don't want to have organization ID as a sharding key on every table. But then later on, in the context of organization mover, we'll have to implement some sort of row level filtering during replication. And with the multiple sharding keys we support now, like namespace ID and project ID, like when you're going through the table, how do you know, like, is this belonging to the organization we're moving or not? Even more that it will be operation that will take time, and some of those records may have changed. I don't know if it's possible, but let's say they change the value of the sharding key after you've went through them. So in that aspect, it will be way easier if we have like just a single value as a sharding key everywhere, because then you know we need to move it or not. But I don't know, is this something that you've thought about or like discussed in the past? Or it's just too far in the future as of now?
I think it's a bit far. As far as I know, like when Sampat was looking at this for like filtering, like which project IDs, like which sharding keys to pick, like not which sharding keys to pick, but which sharding values to pick, like project ID, which ID to pick, and things like that. I think Sampat talked about like doing discovery phase where we first discover all the projects, all the groups, the group ID, project IDs, namespace IDs.
Okay.
And then we'll filter by those IDs that we discover, right?
Okay, yeah. So it's still like as of given time, whatever was in that organization will be moved or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I was just looking earlier today at the tool that Shopify have for the same thing, moving shops between different shards. And they do have the shop ID everywhere, and that's how they filter. So it looked easier, but I don't know how you do it, updates and stuff like this.
Yeah, the problem like Shopify shop ID makes a lot of sense for them, right? Because like the shop ID will never change, or like you'll never move something out of a shop to another shop. I think what Tong was saying, if we move a group from one organization to another, that means we have to rewrite all the organization.
Yeah, but that's like a kind of not artificial, but a problem coming from the fact that we are splitting the big current database. Otherwise, in the future, once you start an organization, you never moved out of it, right? It's just that we now start with default one and we'll have to split it. But after this one, there will be always, you start with organization and that's it till the end of time.
Yeah, that's true. Unless we allow one top level group to move from one org to another, which we are going to.
Then that changes, yeah.
Yeah, which we are going to allow, because that's how we're gonna. So with Cell 1.0, we're gonna move one top level group from the default organization right now to another. So I think the product will allow that. And it makes sense to allow that, like even like a company might get acquired, so they might want to delete the old organization and move the top level group,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay, yeah.
so-
But your answer that will just figure out everything in the beginning and then use those values.
yeah,
Kind of answers my question.
yeah, and I think in the we talked about downtime, right? Like in the beginning, we might have some downtime with the org mover for this kind of problems.
Mhm.
Like we put the organization in read-only mode, for example, so they can't create new projects or new groups. So the ID, the list of IDs is static and doesn't move. But in the future, we might want to change that as well, right? So, yeah, I think it's still a bit early on that, but as far as I know, they're gonna do a discovery phase in the beginning of the move.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Just quickly, I think there is another future reason to have organization ID everywhere. In that, if you're familiar with partition tables, you probably know about this. Like all your queries should have the partitioning key in your query. Otherwise, it's not. It's gonna return kind of like incorrect data, and I think we will have similar problems in the future. I think was it? Yeah, I think the fulfillment team has this problem in some of their queries. So imagine if you say select exist one from namespace, where this kind of criteria exists, but you don't specify the organization ID. You might assume that you have the data, but the namespace is all sharded. So like that's just one of the things that we have to watch out for. But that's a 1.5 thing, at least.
Okay, any other items we want to discuss? Okay, if there's no more items, this is the amount of awkward silence I can handle. So I'll cancel the meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.